minutes? 2-3 minutes, ma'am. Okay, I'll be there in 3 minutes. So, I'd like to introduce all of you to today's the last session's presenter, and this is Shree Deepa ma'am. You have already met her once. She was giving the feedback in the last session. So, let me introduce Professor Shree Deepa ma'am. She is a very senior professor at University of Hyderabad, and she has been into the English teaching field for a long time, and has got a lot of experience of teaching and training the learners into various fields. So I won't talk much about ma'am. Her words itself. Let's learn from ma'am and let her words speak more than speaking about her. So I request ma'am to take a session. Actually, this session I said was already planned for pronunciation, but because Arun sir has got certain very urgent issues to look after, his father-in-law passed away. So I request Sri Deepa ma'am to prepon is the wrong word, to plan the session in advance.
No, prepon is a good word now. It's
It's
found its
accepted.
way. Yes, it is an accepted
Accepted
word.
word. So earlier it was not accepted in English. Now it's accepted. So prepone the session of day before, day after, day after, day
No, it
after
was
they start.
tomorrow.
Day after tomorrow it was there. It was tomorrow. Yeah. So I've asked ma'am to prepare the session. Ma'am is going to talk about teachers' autonomy. What kind of freedom you can have in the classroom. In terms of curriculum transaction, in terms of question paper designing, in terms of many things. I'll leave it to ma'am to discuss with you and take your queries also as to what kind of freedom you can use. Ma'am, I think you now know that they are the teachers of Madhya Pradesh, the whole of Madhya Pradesh English secondary and senior secondary teachers. And maybe sometimes if they ask you, you can also be bilingual, but many of them understand English. Over to you, ma'am. I may get to some work. I'll join after 10-15 minutes. So the whole thing is over to you. Manage the whole group the way you wish. Okay, ma'am.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Ganga. Let me present my screen. But before I do that, like I requested all of you, I put forth a link for a Google survey form. So I would request all of you to please take this survey and respond by the end of today. That is, if you want to be in the session, you can still be in the session, and if you want to do it later, I leave the choice to you. But maybe by 10 p.m. tonight, I would request all of you to give the responses as far as possible. All right. And with no further delay, I'm going to go ahead and present my screen. In case you need me to stop somewhere, or you need me to go a little slow, you need me to use Hindi, you can ask me to do that. But wherever possible, I will try and use Hindi, because my Hindi is not very shuddh. I might make a lot of mistakes, so please forgive my Hindi, because I'm a South Indian, and I do speak Hindi a little bit, but please forgive if I make mistakes. So let me present my screen to you first. Is this visible to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. It is visible.
Thank you. So the title of today's talk is going to be one on teachers' autonomy. Teachers, all of us know what teachers are, because all of us are one of them. But what is autonomy? But before I go into that, I would want to tell you a small story of a teacher. This happened about 20 years ago. A teacher joined a school, and she was given class 8 to teach. But as she went into the class 8, she found that there were about 6 or 7 sections of class 8. And in none of the classrooms that she had to teach, there were chairs for her to sit down. Because all the chairs on which the teachers were supposed to sit were removed from the classroom. She went from one, she thought that the first classroom that she went to, maybe the students took away the chair, something happened. She walked into the next section, in the next timetable hour. She found that there was no chair for the teacher, even in that classroom. She went into the third timetable hour. She found that the chair was missing. She went into the fourth classroom, the chair was missing. So on and so forth. She had about 7 timetable hours that day, and in all of the classrooms, the chairs were missing. So this new teacher, on the first day of her job, tried asking some of the new colleagues that she had made and asked them what happened to the chairs in the classroom. She was shocked to know that the school believed that teachers are not supposed to be seated in the classroom at all. And the whole of the 7 hours, excluding the lunch hour or the short break, which was for 10 minutes, the teacher was expected to stand. And the only time that she was allowed to sit was in her free hour. So the next day, when this teacher went into the classroom, there were quite a few number of other teachers who were absent. But in this teacher's timetable, she had 2 free timetable hours. But then those 2 hours went away on substitutions because 3 or 4 other teachers were absent. So the second day went on with this teacher taking a straight 7-hour classes without a chair in each of those classrooms. And it also so happened that this teacher, on the second day of her teaching, was asked to deposit all her certificates with the school authorities, because the school authorities told her that if she had to resign the job without giving a notice period, or if she applied for no more number of leaves, her certificates would be confiscated. Now, with this kind of a story, we need to ask ourselves the question, do teachers have human rights at all? All right. And in today's, if you fast forward this, like I said, 20 years ago, this happened to a teacher. And that teacher is talking to you right now. So this kind of an experience happened to me when I was teaching in a school 20 odd years ago. When you fast forward this to today's scenario, where teaching is online in most of the states because of the COVID pandemic, so on and so forth, many teachers, and including me, we feel that we do not have any personal time or personal life at all. Earlier, it was a 9 to 5 job, but with the online teaching, it has become a 24/7 job. So think about this. I'm calling this activity a thought seed. I'm calling this activity a thought seed. I don't expect you to answer to me, but I would want you to be in that frame of thinking. Now let's get into the topic of today, which is teacher autonomy. Autonomy means freedom. Autonomy means independence. If you look up a dictionary, if you look up, if you Google it, you're going to find that the word autonomy means independence. It means freedom. If you put these 2 words, teacher autonomy, in the context of the story that I just told you, where is a teacher who doesn't have human rights? Where is the question of independence? Where is the question of freedom? What freedom are we talking about? Let's go a little further. Teacher autonomy is a very talked about topic in the research literature. They say, the literature, the research says that it is a critical variable that constructively contributes to instructive or education change and drives to address issues found in the current education system. So on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. And this is said by these two people. Now, इसका मतलब क्या है? जो टीचर क्लास में जाती है उसको कितना फ्रीडम मिलता है? वो इंसान है, वो इंसान के जैसे बर्ताव हो रहा है उसके साथ? ये सब हमको क्वेश्चन करना पड़ेगा. एंड रिसर्च में ऐसा बताया गया है, जो टीचर को ऑटोनॉमी या इंडिपेंडेंस या फ्रीडम मिलता है, जो अपना काम अपने हिसाब से कर सकती हो, वो टीचर जो भी स्कूल में इश्यूज है, जो भी टीचिंग में इश्यूज है, वो सब जल्द से जल्द बहुत आसानी से सुलझाव हो जाएगा. अभी इसे हमको पकड़ कर रखना है, क्योंकि जैसे बर्ताव ये स्टोरी में जो टीचर को हुआ है, जो मुझसे हुआ है, जो आपसे हो रहा है, ये सब इसलिए हो रहा है क्योंकि हमारे अपना राइट्स हमको पता नहीं है. We do not know our rights. We do not stand up for our rights. We are told as teachers what our responsibilities are, what our duties are. ऐसा करो, ऐसा ना करो, ऐसा करो, ऐसा ना करो. सब लोग हमको बताते जाते हैं, मगर कोई भी हमें अपना ह्यूमन राइट्स या अपने जो भी टीचर राइट्स है, या टीचर ऑटोनॉमी है, टीचर इंडिपेंडेंस है, टीचर फ्रीडम है, उसके बारे में कोई भी हमसे बात भी नहीं करता है. कोई भी हमें बोलता भी नहीं है कोई भी, क्योंकि सबका फोकस जो हमको करना चाहिए उसी के ऊपर है. And in other words, if a teacher doesn't have freedom, then it is detrimental to student growth. यही तो लिटरेचर कहता है. जो टीचर को ऑटोनॉमी मिलता है, जो टीचर अपने हिसाब से वो क्लासरूम के टीचिंग हैंडलिंग वो सब करती है, in such a classroom student growth is high. If the teachers do not get that freedom, it is detrimental to student growth. On one hand, in the morning, you heard Dr. Ravi Narayan Chakrakodi speak to you about research writing. Research का मतलब उन्होंने समझाया था आपको कि जो है उसको नया तरीका से दिखाओ, जो है उसको खोज कर उसके बारे में लिखो, बात करो, तो वो रिसर्च हो जाता है. नया वाला जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है वो रिसर्च होता है. अभी क्लासरूम्स में आपको फ्रीडम नहीं मिलता है, ऑटोनॉमी नहीं है, इंडिपेंडेंस नहीं है, तो इनोवेशन कैसा होगा? इसके बारे में कोई भी बात करने के लिए रेडी नहीं है, क्योंकि we are in watertight classroom situation. Very often the textbooks tell us what to do. Very often the HODs tell us what to do. Very often the curriculum tells us what to do. Very often the policies tell us what to do. Nobody asks the teacher what she or he wants to do in the classroom in the best interest of his or her students, because nobody else knows their students as much as this teacher does. Because I am a teacher, you are a teacher. How many times have we not woken up at 9 p.m. while we were seated at the dining table or having our dinner, or woken up right in the middle of our sleep and thought of, oh, this is what I'm going to do if I have to teach this particular lesson. Tomorrow, I have this student who may not understand this. So in order to make him understand, I'm going to bring in this example. टीचर का लाइफ ऐसा होता है कि उनका पर्सनल लाइफ में भी टीचिंग ही चलता रहता है. Very often. So the teacher as a person, the teacher as a with a personal life is always a teacher first. And only then she or he becomes something else. Because it is a 24/7 job. Unlike the other people who, after the office timings are over, can switch off their minds. Teachers cannot switch off their minds. I'm one of them. Correct me if I am wrong. So teachers keep thinking about their lessons, keep thinking about their students, keep thinking about how they plan, how they teach, what materials to use, so on and so forth, all the time. So, but putting such a teacher in a watertight classroom compartment is going to be very suffocating for the teacher, because nobody speaks about teachers' rights and the freedom or the independence that the teacher has with her teaching. Because there's a huge mismatch between what the teacher is and what the teacher is forced to do. There's a lot of constriction that is happening. So we need to talk about teacher autonomy in the Indian classrooms. And for this reason, we have brought in this particular topic as part of the DCTE course offered by RIE Bhopal. Because innovation is directly linked to teacher autonomy, which is also linked to teacher rights. Just because we have taken a job doesn't mean that we are bonded laborers. It doesn't mean that we do not have any rights as a human being. The example of the story that I gave you, that is a gross violation of human rights. No human being should be treated like that. 7 hours of standing and teaching without a chair in the classroom. Teachers are not people who take things for granted. Teachers are not lazy people. By removing those chairs, what does the administration think of the teachers? Where are the teachers' rights? And on one hand, our institution, our administration expects us to be innovative and do a lot of action research, do a lot of publications. But unless teacher autonomy is given to the teacher, unless the teacher is given the freedom to experiment, unless the teacher is given a little bit of independence in what she's trying to do in her own classroom, there cannot be any kind of innovation. Now let us look at what the policies say. I'm going to take this and scribe this for you in the chat box for a moment for you to save. And I have taken the extract here, and where this says that statements of teaching philosophies, or STPs, of teachers' autonomy, it is very important that teachers write their own statements of teaching philosophies and not follow something that comes from above. So this is one of, the focus should be on task number 85, NEP para number 4.2.3 to 4.2.9. Here also in the NEP, we find that there's a lot of talk about faculty autonomy, teacher autonomy. Unless we know these policies, we won't be able to take the freedom from our administration. Very often the administration and the parents and our HODs and whoever, they come to us and they question on what changes we have made in the classroom. ऐसा क्यों किया है, वैसा क्यों किया है, ऐसा करने का इजाजत कहां से मिल गया आपको? ये सब सवाल हमसे पूछा जाएंगे. अगर हम इन्फॉर्म्ड हो, अगर हम उसको रैशनलाइज कर सकते हैं कि ऐसे हमने क्यों किया है, तब वो सब लोग चुप होके आप अपना काम जानते हो करके समझ के आपको छोड़ के आपको अपने काम करने के लिए छोड़ेंगे। नहीं तो if we are not able to articulate and rationalize, people will be after us all the time and preventing us from doing research, preventing us from being innovative. So you can quote the NEP 2020 and show whoever is objecting, obstructing teachers' autonomy, show them this and say that, see, in the NEP, this is what they have asked us to do. So the NEP says that teachers' autonomy, just like learners' autonomy, because many people speak about learners' autonomy, माने हम अपने स्टूडेंट्स को कैसा सीखना है ये हमको सिखाना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि जब टीचर उनके लाइफ में नहीं रहेंगे तब भी वो सीखने का काम तो बंद नहीं करना चाहिए, वो अपने आप जाके सीखना है। ये छात्र को हम सिखाने के लिए हमारा ये मजबूरी है और हमारा ड्यूटी भी है एज टीचर्स, ताकि स्टूडेंट्स इंडिपेंडेंटली अपने काम, अपना जो पढ़ाई है वो अपने आप कर सके। अगर छात्र ऐसा करने के लिए मजबूर है, ऐसा करने के लिए हम पुश कर रहे हैं, तो अगर टीचर को यही ऑटोनॉमी नहीं मिलता हो तो वो टीचर स्टूडेंट्स को सिखा नहीं सकती है, बिकॉज अनलेस द टीचर herself experiences this freedom, experiences this innovation, experiences the innovative practices, does research on her own, has the freedom, she cannot insist, she cannot teach her students to do the same and to have the same feeling. So NEP 2020 right now talks about ways to ensure teachers' autonomy as learners, and they include providing integrated education, teacher education. So टीचर्स को सिखाएंगे कि कैसे आप ऑटोनमस रहेंगे, आपका क्या इंडिपेंडेंस है, और टीचर को सिखाएंगे कि आप एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन अपने टीचिंग में कैसे कर सकते हैं, एंड टीचर्स को सिखाएंगे कि आपके ऑप्टिमल लर्निंग एनवायरनमेंट कैसा क्रिएट करेंगे, किसके द्वारा, कंटिन्यूअस प्रोफेशनल डेवलपमेंट के द्वारा और करियर मैनेजमेंट प्रोग्रेशन के द्वारा. So it is all in the policy, it is all in the literature. Magar, when we are talking of the real classroom situation, मुझसे भी आपको अच्छा पता रहेगा कि ये रियलिटी में नहीं हो रहा है. अगर इसको रियलिटी में लाना हो तो ऐसे जो चैप्टर्स है टीचर ऑटोनॉमी के ऊपर, वो अपने टीचर एजुकेशन कोर्सेस में रहना जरूरी है. इसके बिना आप और हम और जो भी टीचर्स है इसके बारे में बात करने से कोई फायदा नहीं रहेगा. So in our current real situation, what are the rights of a teacher? How much can we do with the materials that are given to us? कितना उसके साथ अपने materials माने टेक्स्ट बुक रहेगा या चैप्टर्स रहेगा, टेक्स्ट बुक के पीछे जो क्वेश्चंस है, एक्सरसाइजेस है, उसके ऊपर आप कितना, आपका जो होल्ड है और जो आपका फ्रीडम है वो कितना है अभी. ये आंसर आप मुझे देने के लिए जरूरत नहीं है, आपने आप सोच लीजिएगा कि हाउ मच ऑफ फ्रीडम डू आई हैव with the materials that I use in the classroom. Do I have the authority, do I have the freedom to take maybe a newspaper cutting and take it to the class for teaching? Can I use the same newspaper cutting in my exam? स्टूडेंट्स को हम बोलते हैं आप असाइनमेंट आप घर में जाके ये काट के वो काट के चार्ट पे लगा के लेके आ जाओ कल. क्या यही टीचर्स को कर सकते हैं कि आपके सिचुएशंस में? सोच लीजिएगा. Similarly, what about methods? What kind of a freedom, what kind of an autonomy do teachers have in real situation in today's English language classroom? Similarly, with assessments. Assessments में आपका कितना फ्रीडम है? स्कूल का जो है यूनिट टेस्ट का टाइम टेबल बनाया जाएगा, क्या आप उसको इधर उधर करने का आपका फ्रीडम है? शायद आप सोच ले हो कि मेरे क्लास में अभी फर्स्ट यूनिट टेस्ट लिखने के लिए मेरे छात्र रेडी नहीं है, तो शायद नेक्स्ट वीक रेडी होंगे। क्या आपको इतना फ्रीडम है कि जाके आपके प्रिंसिपल या एचओडी से बात करके बोलेंगे कि नहीं नहीं, अभी दिस वीक आई कैन नॉट गिव द एग्जाम, लेट मी गिव इट लेटर? Or maybe the pattern of the question paper itself. How much of freedom do teachers have in the Indian classrooms? So think about all of that. But let us also understand that some things are constants and some things are variables. Mane, many Indian classroom teachers cannot change the textbooks that are prescribed for class 8 or class 9 or whatever. They do not have, because NCERT publishes those textbooks. Maybe you follow the NCERT textbooks, maybe you follow some other textbooks. You cannot pick the textbooks and throw it out and say, I'm going to bring a new set of textbooks. That may not be possible. And maybe sometimes timetabling schedules, you might want, say, 8 hours in a week, but the school timetable allows you 6 hours in a week. So do you have a choice? May not. So that falls into the constant category. But there are certain other things which are variables. For example, maybe the exercises behind each of those lessons that you teach, you can tweak it a little bit. Maybe you can stretch, but you cannot probably teach one lesson over the whole year or the whole semester. That kind of a freedom school teachers may not have. But then, with whatever constants and variables, I leave it to you to think of what constants and what variables you have. Let us move on to action, research, innovation, teacher autonomy, the connection. Whatever little variables that you have in terms of materials, methods, and assessments, you can carry out small action research, use innovative practices. Think of what could work in your classrooms. Sit down and take notes. There's going to be another session very shortly for you on how to do research in the classroom. So I'm not going to go in greater detail into this. And use this autonomy that you might have to take from the administration for yourself. Because freedom, if you know, is not given, freedom is taken. Independence, again, is not given, it is supposed to be taken. Similarly, autonomy, wherever you have tiny little possibility, grab that possibility. Work on it, innovate, research on it, write about it, publish in it, talk about it, give lectures, talk about it to your colleagues, to your peer members in other groups. Then people will start talking about teacher autonomy, and whatever little research that you're going to do in the classroom will be beneficial to the larger community outside your own school. Now, a few more questions to take us further. What do instructors consider to be main choices made with the school work? As far as I know, the only choice that I got as a school teacher was, which class would you like to teach next year? Do you want to continue teaching 8A? Do you want to continue teaching English to 8A? This was pretty much the question, pretty much the choice that I had as a teacher. Now, what kind of choices do you have? When a choice is given to you, you make the best use of this choice that is given to you as teachers in order to ensure that you grab the teacher's autonomy. This is what I did in my life, and I am here in front of you. So grab the opportunity. Many of us think that I won't be able to do this, I won't be able to do that. So do not make it a low self-esteem issue. Whenever there's a choice, make the right choice, which is beneficial to your career growth. Next, what do instructors think about settling? Who do you think settle these choices? If you don't take these choices, the head will take the choice, the educators will take the choice, or the private or district entertainers, guardians, so on and so forth. If you do not make the right choice, all these people will teach you what to do. So whenever you make a choice within your teaching paradigm, अगर आप वो चॉइस नहीं लेते हो तो ये सब लोग आपके काम के भीतर आ जाएंगे and they will teach you how to do your job. Instead of letting them teach you how to do your job, if the teacher is an informed teacher, if she knows the principles of teaching, if she can rationalize whatever innovations that she's doing in the classroom, if she does all these innovative practices with the research background, then it becomes easier for her to handle all these people who come in your way. All right, let us do a tiny little activity here, which I have projected. I have put in a few statements given by teachers and what they feel about teacher autonomy and teacher independence. I'm projecting this in the screen. I want you to, there are 5 points here. I want you to quickly read through the 5 points and scribe in the chat box which are the areas, which are the statements that you agree with and you think that teachers ought to have independence in these things. So which are the statements that you think the teachers must have independence in? These are actual statements given by different teachers. So just take a moment and scribe in the chat box. If the need be, I'll also copy this into the chat box for you. Okay, not all of them have come. Sorry about that. Sorry. There you go. Number 1, picking the content and educational curriculum of their subjects, they ought to have option to pick the illustrations and values they wish to teach in the students as indicated by their age, interests, and climate. Exorbitant dependence on reading material or textbooks ought to be curtailed. These are actual statements made by teachers like you and me. These are not my statements. So I'm going to put them in quotations. These teachers wanted to be anonymous, so their names are not given here. Do you agree with point number 1? How many of you agree that the teacher should have independence in picking the content and the curriculum? Here, probably what she means is syllabus or course content. Because curriculum, I think the school decides. NCF, National Curriculum Framework, it's a nationwide curriculum. So teachers may not have the choice of picking the curriculum. But if the teacher is an extremely good one in a particular school, probably they will allow her to do that. But that will mean that a CBSE school will change into ICSE school or an ISE school or, you know, IB school, IGCSE, so on and so forth. So your curriculum is a misnomer. But I like it when she says teachers should have the option to pick the illustrations and values that they wish to teach. And she thinks she needs freedom in picking material in accordance with the student's age, their interest, and their climate. Climate may be outside climate, maybe in the classroom. Why climate? Because in my own classroom, I have had my students come to me on a rainy day and say, "Ma'am, we don't want any teaching today. Let us just sit and chit chat today. Because it's very gloomy today outside. It's raining. We don't feel like listening to a new lesson." So maybe that kind of a climate, or maybe the overall general social climate of the classroom. Depends on that. So this particular teacher feels that An exorbitant dependence on reading material or textbooks ought to be curtailed. And textbook becomes the Bible of the classroom. जो भी टेक्स्ट में है उसी को पढ़ाया जाएगा, जो भी टेक्स्ट बुक के पीछे जो भी एक्सरसाइजेस है उसी को हमको पढ़ाना है, कोई ज्यादा कम नहीं कर सकते आप. एंड उसमें जो सीक्वेंस है 1 2 3 4 5 6 वही सीक्वेंस में जाएगा. अगर आपको 3 पहले पढ़ाना हो वो नहीं पढ़ा सकते आप. ऐसा इंडिपेंडेंस ऑटोनॉमी टीचर को क्लासरूम में मिलना चाहिए. यही तो अभी प्रश्न है आपके सामने. Number 2, professional advancement objectives. Not a one size fits all. They ought to have the option to pick their way up towards professional advancements as per their inclinations. Meaning, अगर आपको कुछ promotions मिलना चाहिए तो एक ही जो बॉक्स है उसके अंदर आपको फिट किया जा रहा है. आपको शायद वो पसंद नहीं हो, शायद आप कुछ दूसरा करना चाहते हो, मगर we have the same kind of professional advancement objectives given to all of us. Similarly, number 3, decision making for the school will not simply remain agents of choices made by the chief or head or higher specialist. Can I request this noisy person to put their English talk? Can you please go on mute? Mr. English talk. आप डिस्टर्ब कर रहे हो English talk. Please mute. Please mute English talk. Somebody who says English talk, please mute yourself. Similarly, time independence. An instructor shouldn't be forced to work in non-working hours, more so when it comes to pandemic kind of teaching, the online teaching, work from home. This is what this teacher feels, where the teacher is expected to be online every minute of every day. It denies the educator the time they need to spend on self-development, family, and home responsibilities. And number 5, independence on privacy protection. Sharing of individual contact data of instructor in some cases turns into a hazard, and there are no limits for students and guardians to connect to the extent of becoming a nuisance. So when we share our personal details, people go on disturbing and in many very different ways. They become nuisance. Right? So I'll quickly come to the chat box and find out what things are being said. Can I request the host of the meeting to please mute this English talk?
गैस की गोली खाने से कोई नुकसान नहीं रहता. खातू उसको क्या है?
Host of the meeting.
नहीं रेगुलर मत खाओ, ऐसे जैसे कब जब बनती हो जब खा लो.
Host of the meeting, please.
आदत में मतलब.
Please mute this English talk. There's one participant by name English talk. And they're not even listening. Yes, Reena Lal, you have raised your hand. Can I take your question, please? Reena Lal? Reena Lal? Okay. This is an example of misusing. Yes, exactly. I'm extremely sorry, Hemlata, because of this disturbance by English talk. They're just oblivious to everything. They're not even leaving the screen. Archana Srivastav says teacher must be independent to teach with his or her pattern or way of teaching according to the syllabus. Yes. The teacher Karulal Jamda says the teacher must be everywhere from the head to the bottom in developing and implementing curriculum. I agree with you. Teacher should be independent in curriculum and free to teach syllabus. Poonam, you need to understand the difference between curriculum and syllabus. Curriculum is nationwide policy. Okay. Nationwide policy, yes, in the creation of the policy, teachers must be there. Yes. I agree with you on that count.
Yes, ma'am, I'm agree with you. Absolutely. Curriculum and syllabus both are related, but syllabus is, we can say it is a limited part of the content.
Right.
They are limited part, or we can say it's a very specific chapters which is related to the subject also, but curriculum is the whole or overall all knowledge of the subject and command over the subject also, but syllabus is the part of curriculum.
Yes. Yes.
Say.
Syllabus is a course that
Yes.
Syllabus is something that drives the course.
Course.
Okay. And when you take the course, you have those lessons, and within those lessons, you have each of those timetable boxes, timetable slots that you have. So that becomes a pedagogic slot for you. All right. There are many schools where even the pedagogic slots are, filled up with lesson plans, and somebody tells you how to teach.
Yes.
All right. So a few more.
Deepa ma'am, can I just, I've got a small, I think you allow ma'am to be through with the presentation, and wherever required, wherever ma'am asks for input, only there you give input.
Yeah. This was something that was planned. I had asked.
Ma'am, I was somehow told by some of my friends here that a lot of unnecessary discussion also happened. I said that you please confine yourself to the talk or to the academic discussion and nothing of something that is irrelevant or something.
Right.
Vijay Verma sir, are you there? Ma'am, just give me a moment. Vijay Verma sir, are you there? Tiwari sir, Vijay Tiwari sir, you're there?
Yes, sir. I am. Ma'am has taken the session very nicely, sir. There is no irrelevant talk.
Just one request. In case I have many a time some other duties to also attend to. So in case you see that something unnecessary is happening in the group or some,
No,
do that.
there was a participant named English Talk. Only that participant has disturbed the session.
आप वैसे लोगों के लिए थोड़ा हमें रिमाइंड करेंगे और उनको हम ग्रुप से निकालेंगे
जी
तो आप थोड़ा
इंग्लिश टॉक
डिसिप्लिन देखिए सर ग्रुप को तब वो ग्रुप का डिसिप्लिन यू प्लीज सी टू दैट ओके सर
okay
if I am there I'll always do that in case I am not there please cooperate this with the speaker and see that only necessary or wanted discussion is happening thank you ma'am please continue
Ganga some people this English talks person he has just left his mic on unmute and went on talking very loudly a lot of discussions and laughter and other things were happening and my voice was not heard by the participants.
So wahan thoda sa I'll check with the team what was the issue. I'll do that. We'll remove such participants, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Please go ahead. Sorry for the disturbance.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So we'll continue. I'll continue with presenting the screen now. I think I've addressed most of the comments in the chat box. And we have another activity planned for you. Activity 2. Look at what another teacher like us is pining to do in her classroom. What are you planning to do in your courses? Think of what Dr. Ravi Narayan spoke about in the morning on innovation and research, and think of an activity that can become a subject of research, and think of the steps that you would want to take and what might become the obstacles. So teacher autonomy deals with how you handle the obstacles that prevent you from taking these steps. All right. So if you need to talk, just go ahead, unmute yourselves one by one and speak about this, because I heard you in the morning, many of you spoke about your research plans, in the morning session. So if you have something to add, you can go ahead and add. While you think about it, here are some responses given by teachers like us. See, one teacher wants to break the set patterns of question paper and make her own question paper. And another teacher wants to go beyond the syllabus, laterally and vertically. And number 3, another teacher wants the students to allow students to talk about their grievances regarding the class. And another teacher wants to change teaching techniques and the system. All right. So we always have many things within us as plans, as research ideas, as some innovative practices that we want to take into the classroom. But very often, many obstacles prevent us from going ahead. So that was about this activity 2. If there are no responses, let me check the chat box. Vocabulary. Okay, somebody says they would like to talk about vocabulary. Vijay Tiwari, yes, please, go ahead.
Madam, teacher should be given partial choices to select the syllabus, not full,
Okay.
partial.
Okay.
Teacher should be given a partial choice to select the syllabus according to the learning level of the students.
Correct. I agree with you. I agree with you.
For example, madam, we have noted that the present method of teaching, we have left grammar translation method.
Right.
And we are just teaching only in English. We are teaching all types of writing skills, reading skills, everything. But basic linguistic ability is not in the student.
Okay.
And my teaching career has been for the past 30 years. Earlier, I have also noted down that time when grammar translation was widely used and linguistic ability of students was quite better compared to the present students.
Okay.
So in my teaching, I teach basic grammar and translation, basic, not advanced, so that student at least knows where to keep which word and which form of the verb is to be used, how he has to put all these things together. And if he can write basic sentences correctly, then he can make notes, he can write answers, he can write letters and other things. So I have been doing, and I feel that this direct method of teaching has not been too fruitful in our classroom.
Okay. So can I respond to that, Mr. Vijay Deva?
Yes, ma'am.
See, actually what research tells us, the reason why we brought in the direct method and did not let go of the grammar translation method was for certain reasons, where we said that is stimulus response theory, that is behaviorism, that gets informed by all of that. But as a teacher, if you think that grammar translation method is working for you in a much better way than direct method, please do not allow anybody to tell you that you are wrong.
Okay.
Nobody has, but the only place where I think is a problem is that, have you documented your experiments of using grammar translation method?
No,
if you have documented, if you can prove, because people will come and ask you, अच्छा विजय तिवारी साहब, आप तो ये बोलते हैं कि ग्रामर ट्रांसलेशन मेथड आपको अच्छा चल रहा है, मगर अभी तो सारा दुनिया तो डायरेक्ट मेथड में जा रहा है, तो आपके पास क्या प्रूफ है कि आपके सिस्टम वर्केबल है? अगर आप एक्सपेरिमेंट करके, अगर if you do a comparative experiment of direct teaching method and grammar translation method, and show that grammar translation method में आपको results अच्छा आ रहा है. And if you go ahead and publish it, if you're able to write a paper and speak about it in a conference, with evidence, if you're able to prove, then Vijay Tiwari's words will be taken seriously. Otherwise, people will pin you. I'm sorry to say, I'm going to play the devil's advocate and use the flip side and say, "Are Vijay Tiwari साहब तो कुछ ना कुछ बोलते ही रहते हैं." So in order to cut that, you need to do your experiments, document it, write about it, have your results speak for themselves. Because nobody can tell you, somebody told you that direct method is better because they were able to show the results and prove that their experiments produce fruitful results. बस आप भी कीजिए तो आप भी टॉक ऑफ द टाउन हो जाएंगे.
Okay, thank you, madam. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes. Go ahead.
Karula Jamda here. Actually, I am agree with Mr. Vijay. So far as his thinking is concerned, because whatever was before this pattern was employed, grammar translation method was the really the basis of for the students to learn English. In fact, but actually, what's going up nowadays that as we want to create the environment of communication English in our schools. And that's why I think that grammar translation method was not proper enough to bring the students to that level. And that's why such kind of environment is being made through this types of books which we are learning nowadays, and the new pattern. I think so. This is the reason why a new pattern has been introduced for the students. I think so.
Right. I agree with you, Jamda Sahab. What you can also do is, that is what I was saying, you document. See, what you're coming up is with a hypothesis.
Yeah.
आपके gut feeling को आप बता रहे हैं कि grammar translation method काम कर रहा है, मगर उसका proof चाहिए. Because research believes in proof, evidence, empirical evidence. Yes, Geeta Priyasakhan, please unmute yourself and go ahead. Geeta.
See, this is Geeta Dorerajan using a different name. Sorry of my mistake in coming in as Geeta Dorerajan. This is about I think it was the same Vijay Tiwari who spoke about how the teacher must be given partial space in changing the syllabus. Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
Somebody spoke about partial.
You're right. It's the same
but then you're also saying, I want to go back to the grammar translation method. Now, as a teacher in the classroom with a prescribed textbook, with given materials, you may not be able to go back completely to the grammar translation method. But that does not mean that you cannot take bits from it. When you feel your students are making a mistake, and that mistake is because of their, let's say this is all Madhya Pradesh, so Hindi background, or there are other tribal language backgrounds, you have, of course, as the teacher, you should be able to say with autonomy, look, can we take 10 minutes, look at these two, the way it is said in this language, the way it is said in this language, what are the problems? And how did I change it? How can we change it? Have a discussion. And I pick this up tomorrow when I come in, or whenever, I think I'm coming in on Friday. When I talk of innovation, I will pick this up and talk about how bringing in the little bits of grammar translation into a direct method or a communicative method can become a research project, can become an innovation. I'm just making that promise. Take it further. You may not be able to stay with only grammar translation because you can't change your actual textbook. You will be forced to teach for that exam, but there is always space for the teacher to make changes. Thank you.
More inputs from anybody else? If there's nothing, then we'll just go ahead. Yes, Rajesh Srivastava.
Ma'am, I want to say something about the
Yes.
personal closeness of the teachers with the students. Actually, unless and until you have a closeness with the student, you can't just expect to expect from them to sit and listen to your just get involved in the classroom. Actually, it is necessary to know their grievance and their problems. Unless and until you just get the idea, you can't just convince them to just take your lesson seriously, I think.
Yeah, that is there, and I think that is a given. All teachers are always in favor of their students, because even after 20-30 years, these students come back and say, maybe you have forgotten them when they come, when they remember you and come back and wish you. That closeness shows. Yeah, I agree with the fact that teachers need to be understanding of the students and be emotionally connected with them. Yes. In the chat box, I have put in a case study. I just want you to take a few minutes in reading this case study and thinking about it, and then we will pick up a discussion. A PGT who taught biology and English to class 8 chose to teach reading comprehension using the lessons from biology, but was warned not to do so because the principal told her that the two subjects were different. She was told that she cannot use biology text to teach English. The teacher ran out of the principal's office all teared up because she thought she did the right thing and now was not sure where she was seen as doing something wrong. Very often teachers try to do something innovative, but they are not allowed to do so. So how is it that we can help this particular teacher in granting her teacher's autonomy? She took a decision about teaching reading comprehension. She chose the passage from a biology lesson that she was teaching in the same class. So how do we help this teacher gain her independence, her freedom? Do you think the teacher did the right thing or the wrong thing? In this case study,
the teacher was right.
Okay, but why did the principal think that she was wrong, and what is it that she can do to prove that she is right?
The principal did not have clear pedagogical concepts.
Okay, but how can the teacher stand up for herself?
Again, he will have to prove, as you have just said.
How?
He will have to take a text from bio and from others and take a test and show the result to the principal and convince.
See, reading comprehension is understood as unseen texts.
Yeah.
Okay, they are primarily texts.
Yeah.
So reading comprehension can be taught using any kind of a text. It can be a story, it can be an article, it can be anything. If it can be anything, it can also be a text, an extract from the biology lesson.
Yeah.
So that is point number 1. Point number 2, there's something called as content-based instruction. Or I'm describing that for you in instruction, CBI. And you bring in different subjects together because English is a connecting language. There is English in biology. And if the teacher is carefully informed, if the teacher is able to rationalize the decisions that she took in the classroom with authentic sources, with research evidence, with the research rationale, the base, she would not have this kind of a problem. So let me just quickly read. The teacher was right. She should have convinced the principal that, yes, that English was right. Yes, Hemlata Saxena, I agree with you. And she did not present before the principal in a proper manner. The teacher has done the correct thing and she must be given freedom to teach her students according to her way. because the teacher knows her students better than anyone else. And she's also probably saving a lot of time. She's teaching biology concepts through English, using English and the reading comprehension. There's no difference between the questions that appear in a biology text behind the particular chapter and the kind of questions that you find in a reading comprehension questions. So if the teacher is able to merge both the subjects together, she will be saving a lot of time and giving a lot of space and thinking time to her students in the classroom. So if the teacher is an informed one, she wouldn't have had these problems. And for that reason, as teachers, we must keep upgrading ourselves to get out of situations like these. Let us look at one more case study for discussion. I'm going to put it in the chat box again. Informed by only a piece of text the chat box takes. By, I'm just pasting the rest of it, by an anonymous teacher. So go through the second case study. Yes, Smita Bharadwaj, I agree with you.
Ma'am, I think if the plan worked well, then she did not need to just remorse for it actually, because she was all right and she was able to just perform the activity well actually.
Yeah,
she could complete her job well. So I think she was right, I think.
Yeah, but she was held up by the HOD, who said, who permitted? See, here in case study 2, a teacher has prepared her lesson plan and has given the lesson plan to the HOD. But when she actually went into the classroom, she found that she had to make major changes. All right. And she was very happy about these changes and she discussed this in the staff room. But some teacher, an anonymous teacher, called this PGT and, this anonymous teacher took the story to the HOD or whoever. And, this teacher who brought in this a change in the lesson plan was questioned on how she could depart from the lesson plan that was already submitted to the administration.
I think it's a matter of peer teaching or something, just like maybe.
No, there's no peer teaching here. She just discussed it in the class.
Peer pressure, actually. Peer pressure, maybe.
Peer pressure, I don't know. It's about lesson plan and the changes in the lesson plan.
No, if the lesson plan is not working, the previous one, so
right,
she has all the freedom to just change if she is able to just satisfy the students.
Freedom, but somebody who's above her, the HOD, is not agreeing to this.
She could convince the HOD actually. She could take the HOD to the classroom, and
yes,
she could take the HOD to the classroom and allow him to ask the students whether they are satisfied with this.
Exactly. So the teacher took the freedom. The teacher worked independently, and the teacher should be able to. The teacher has her own freedom. This is the teacher's rights that we are talking about. The teacher has the rights to change the lesson plan and make it suitable to her students. Because when the lesson plan is written, it is written in a mind space. But when the teacher gets into the classroom and actually begins taking the class, lots and lots of changes will happen to the lesson plan. Lesson plan is there only as a direction, but not as a directive. Lesson plan is only a direction, not a directive. Yes. Som Prakash Mishra says, being a teacher, we have to deviate from the pre-planned things. Yes. Many times for the better of the students. So this teacher has absolute freedom with her lesson plan. All teachers have this freedom with their lesson plans. All right. Here only we need freedom for teaching. Yes. Being a teacher, we have to, okay. Best method to teach students is what suits them the most. Yes. Teaching is not a fixed mechanical process. The teacher has to change his or her way according to the level of the learners, which the HOD should understand. Yes. This happens sometimes when we do it before class teaching. Yes. When it is done in practical, it is different. And when we have to change our plan and do it according to the students, which is very easily accepted by students. Good. Now, can we move into another case study? Similar case study? So the teacher always has the right to tweak, to work with the lesson plan. That is her basic teaching right. Nobody has the authority to interfere with the lesson plan. Case study number 3.
Nothing. Rajesh not coming. Oh, no. Yeah.
Yes, can we respond on case study 3? What seems to be the issue here? Parents can be convinced by explaining the benefits of understanding-based learning. Okay. Now, when it comes to teacher autonomy, all the stakeholders take responsibilities of trying to teach the teacher how to teach and how to do his or her job. Except the teacher, everybody else thinks that they know how to teach the teacher how to do her job. If 2 parents write the complaint letter, because people who are in administrative positions, there might be many people who are in administrative positions in this Google Meet itself. So I request such people over here to please stand up for your teachers. because they are just trying to do their job. And if possible, the only way the teacher can get out of all of this is by being informed. If the teacher is able to rationalize, bring up some research, some studies, and quote from them, people will just leave her alone. Yes, Solanki, Vandana Solanki. You raised your hand. Is there something that you want to add? Som Prakash Mishra says it was unfortunate, but the whole motive was only to enhance the understanding of the students. Parents would be amazed after showing the complete understanding of their words about the passage. That's what Som Prakash Mishra feels. And sometimes it becomes a job of the teacher to teach the parents as well. Any more additions to this? Yes, Smita Bharadwaj, I totally agree with you. And Anita Rawat, yes. The teacher is just trying. Shiva Suman, are you trying to say something? We're not able to hear you. Exactly, Akhilesh Mishra. Teacher who has taught the lesson very well has to take the feedback from the student. It's one of the way teacher knows that learning is going on in her class. So like this, I have a couple of more case studies. So now I would request some of you to unmute yourselves and talk to me about what issues you have faced or any comments, any observations that you want to give. You can just go ahead, unmute yourselves and speak. Objectives of giving extra questions is what that is to be explained to the parents. Yes. See, it is not the parents who should have objections. If the students felt that the homework was too much, they have a point.
Parents have raised objection, ma'am.
Yes.
The objection comes from, most of the objection comes
Yes.
from the department itself.
Yes.
From the administrations and from our boss, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know that the same thing is the pronunciation also. If you talk about the pronunciation, actually what happens that pronunciation depends on the regional impact also. When the teachers express their views, they have their own regional impacts of dialect and all those things. So once what happened that when I was teaching to the students in a very remote areas, and I was trying to speak in their own dialect, the dialect of the students, I was trying to teach them the pronunciation as they generally speak in their way. So at that time, I was objected one of my seniors who was from outside. He said that, no, that's not the correct pronunciation. But actually, he could not understand the very reality of that particular remote area, because we know very well that the dialect is something different. Actually, they can't pronounce the Hindi well. So how can we go with English for such students? So I think that according to the region, according to the different areas, whatever the expression tone or whatever the way of expression is applied there or used there, that must be done. There is no need that the pronunciation from British or American must be there, that no, you are doing wrong and your pronunciation is not clear. Even when those students are not able to understand the Hindi well, what about the English? And what about the British or American English? So I think according to the dialect, according to the people, according to the students, whatever they understand, we have to go, or we will have to go as they speak. In that way, we will have to pronounce the words, I think so. So it's also kind of freedom, I think.
Right. So, Mr. Jamda, I just need to add and also correct you a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I agree with all the things that you said. I only disagree with one statement which you made, where you said they're not able to speak Hindi well. What to say about English? So this statement I would want to pick up from you, and I want to say that I disagree with you, because Hindi is a far more difficult and much more complicated language than English is.
Yeah, that's right, ma'am. But actually, English is they are completely unaware of English, no? At least they have listened Hindi in conversation and in all those things. But so far as English is concerned, it's very new one for them, and that's why I was going in that way,
Correct.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to state that maybe in the next session, when I meet you about nature of language, I'll pick up a little more on this. Because
sure,
whether it is Hindi or English or their own tribal language, languages are languages.
Yeah,
there are no superior, inferior languages. That is what I'm driving at.
I just wanted to say that the freedom, there must be also freedom in conversation also.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Freedom must be everywhere.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yes. Anything else? They should not, but they often don't. That is the problem. The authority should certainly support the teachers. So this seems to be a common feeling that the authorities must support the teachers and guard them against, unnecessary problems, unnecessary obstacles coming from different stakeholders. So that is why we need to discuss about teacher autonomy. We need to open dialogues about teacher autonomy, because it is the question of our own rights. Because as I began my talk by saying, we are not bonded laborers. We are just doing a job. And this job, without any kind of a human rights given to the teacher, reduces her to a slave, which she is not. So we need to find out. So for that reason, I'm opening up this dialogue in this country for the very first time in the teacher education courses. Because if you look at any of our teacher education courses, I'm sure you wouldn't find a unit on teacher autonomy, because it is time that we stood up for ourselves, that we contributed into making a list of our own rights. This is very, very important. So I request all of you to fill in that form and send it to us, so that we can incorporate ideas from there into the module which is still being written. So with that, I have pretty much completed what I wanted to talk to you about this afternoon. So over to Ganga. If there are more questions, I can take a few more.
Yes, participants, have you got any other question, any query, you can please ask. Ma'am is there. If you have any query, any question, you can ask. All right. So thank you very much. I'd like Preeti Sharma, ma'am. Are you there? Preeti Sharma, ma'am. Okay, I'm calling next name. Priya, are you there? Karuna Mastka, are you there? Raj?
Yes, ma'am.
Karuna, ma'am, you are there. Right. Thank you. So may I request you to propose a vote of thanks to ma'am, because you were there throughout. I was moving. Yeah, formally propose a vote of thanks to ma'am.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We have learned a lot and about the case studies. Also, there are lots of techniques used by the teacher, and sometimes ऐसा होता है कि टीचर बहुत अपनी तरफ से कोशिश करता है कि मैं ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा बच्चों को देने की कोशिश करूँ, और अलग से कुछ वो भी बनाते हैं एक्सरसाइज वगैरह. लेकिन हमेशा ये होता है कि पेरेंट्स लोग जो है ना, वो हमेशा जो टीचर की तरफ से होमवर्क आता है उसके लिए बर्डन ही समझते हैं. तो एक केस स्टडी में जैसे बोला गया था कि ये मतलब टीचर के अगेंस्ट कंप्लेंट लिखी गई कि आप ज़्यादा होमवर्क दे रहे हैं। तो ऐसा मेरे साथ भी होता है जब मैं सोचती हूँ कि बच्चों को कम समझ में आया है अभी, जैसे हम डायरेक्ट मेथड यूज़ कर रहे हैं, तो जो टेक्स्ट है उसको समझाने के लिए कि ज़्यादा क्वेश्चंस बनाने पड़ते हैं बच्चों के लिए, और ज़्यादा अच्छे से उनको समझाने के लिए ज़्यादा होमवर्क भी देना पड़ता है। तो ये और बहुत सारी केस स्टडी से काफ़ी कुछ सीखने के लिए मिला है मैम। थैंक यू सो मच।
All right, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Besides that, I can also see the chat box. Some of the, though most of them have given input to you, many of them are, the whole chat box is flooded with a kind of vote of thanks to you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I'm getting myself a different. I have been getting myself in a different world when you're talking about the rights of the teachers. Kind of that. So some of them are like really got new ideas as to how they feel proud being a teacher and what are their rights and responsibilities. Like Archana ma'am is saying, thank you, ma'am. It was a wonderful session and learned a lot and hope we'll meet again. So that way, Srivastav, we have to add a word called Indian word called wonderfulest. There is a word by Shil Bharat, sir. Wonderful. So the whole chat box is flooded with a series of thanks to you. So it must have been really wonderful session. I must feel very sorry because occasionally I had to go here and there for the work that are being piled up. But then I could listen to maximum part of the conversation, and I know that it must have been a really wonderful session. So thank you very much, ma'am, and looking forward for another wonderful session by you on the topic, the next topic that you have to discuss with. So with that, I'd like to thank on behalf of all participants. I'd like to thank you, and I'd also like to thank everyone present here. Thank you, ma'am.
Namaste. Have a good evening, all of you. Meet you again.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you on behalf of all.
Thank you all. We'll meet again tomorrow at
Good evening, all.
25.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
So nice of you, ma'am.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all of you, all of loving teachers. Karuna ma'am,
Thank
Vijay.
you all the participants. We can leave the meeting now.
Yes. You can leave the meeting.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. My friends.
Organizer meeting close. Meeting close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Solanki ji, Chetan Solanki ji,